All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having an incredible day. It's so wonderful to be here. Now, my internet might not be 100%. If we do get disconnected, please bear with me and I will reconnect once again. We have some beautiful, happy, joyful people here that are on the Zoom with us. Hello, David, Iola. Hello, Charles. Thank you so much for being here. Let me open our live stream to see who is on with us here today. We have a very jam-packed conversation that I want to have with you guys today. Let me go ahead and share this live so that people know. Hello, Jaden, Brave Seal, so great to see you. I'm going to post this. Today we are going to talk about embodiment of the absolute and how to embody deep fulfillment. So the chemistry and the genetic structure of fulfillment. Okay, what does that actually mean? We're going to talk about crystallization of DNA. We're going to talk about what happens when we are holding within the multidimensional structure of the body emotions that deconstruct DNA, that essentially create poor regeneration in the cells of our body, and how do we sustain that? This is all a very chemical process because it's a biochemical aspect of our human organism. Yes, we just started, Charles. You're right on time. And again, if my internet gets frozen or something, just go ahead and send me a little note and I will read. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone. Now, I do have some slides that I want to share with you, but there's primarily some main things that I want to talk about. In our last live last week, we had a really great conversation going and some important questions that were asked. So if you had questions in the last Sunday that were not answered, please be sure to put them in the chat below, even if it's not what I'm talking about directly right now. Okay, it's really important that you do that. I want to make sure that I answer your questions because you guys have really great questions that help. Anybody in my Zoom that is here, go ahead and put it in chat. Okay, so there is a major difference between true fulfillment and pleasure. And one of the reasons why this is a really important conversation to have right now is because, hold on, my battery is running low for some reason. Okay, there we go. We should be good now. Okay. There's a tremendous difference between fulfillment and pleasure. Okay. And why it's important to understand that, because many people have been writing me as of this last couple of weeks, going through major transformations in their life that are really causing shifts in the way that their lives are existing. This can be your career, this can be, dealing with your children, it can be, family relationships. Across the board, lots of transitions are occurring. So let's talk about what happens and how do we optimize these major transitions? How do we master the physical body in order to be able to transcend and utilize these opportunities for the alchemization and essentially the activation of our DNA so that we can reconnect and we can remember that we are this absolute. Now, one of the major parts of ascension is, excuse me, is the activation of our memory, okay? The activation of our memory is essentially the core of who we are and what we're doing. So where is the memory, the genetic memory of yourself that is both biophysical and holographic is essentially what we are awakening. And the awakening process of this bio memory is both a holographic structure that is strengthened and created and rebuilt in the multidimensional body. But this holographic structure of memory is essentially your expansion. What is being expanded? You are recognizing yourself as the absolute. You are recognizing yourself as source. When we do not activate that ancestral memory, that holographic memory encoded within the DNA, it is very hard for the human to become whole. It is very hard for the human to heal. It is really difficult for the human to remember who they are, because they are have memories calcified, and in an inversion of a crystallization process that inhibits their ability to activate higher structures within the body, higher geometrical structures. Now remember that our multidimensional body, we are existing multidimensionally, and depending on epigenetically what we allow to what is it called? What we allow to impress or affect and imprint and input data into what we are doing, what we are feeling, what we are existing, essentially is writing the DNA in vivo. Okay, so anytime that we are not connected to the source, not connected to the true essence of what we are collecting data, and most of the collection of that data is a repetitive cycle. So what happens is that the human organism cannot activate the multidimensionality of itself. It simply becomes a repetitive cycle of regeneration just within this simple low vibrational frequency. Now, frequency is really important. Frequency is made up of your thoughts, your actions, your intentions, and the activities that you're doing interdimensionally. When you are disconnected from your interdimensional aspect of yourself, when you are only engaged in the physical material realm of the matrix, there is a major disconnect with your ability to transcend your perception into one of unity. You are only looking at things from a place of separation. And I'm going to talk to you today about the biochemical aspects of that, because there are several parts that are really important to understand that have to do with our brain function and the chemicals that we produce. Okay, primarily those of dopamine and serotonin. They are two extremely important, vital chemicals that affect the way that we are crystallizing our life force, and that we are merging the physical with the non-physical structure of our multidimensional body. When there is a disconnect in these processes, and we are using more dopamine rather than serotonin, there is a complete disconnect in the activation of the geometry of your body. How? Dopamine essentially is the desire for something that is completely insatiated, right? It wants more, it wants more. So essentially, this is the chemical of parasitism, okay? When we become parasitic, we essentially are constantly utilizing dopamine in order to create these chemical desires for everything and anything that satiates that part of us. And how we access the kind of thing that will satiate that desire is dependent on the trauma and the emotion that is originally causing that dopamine need. Okay, so what happens is this: we have a traumatic experience, we don't know how to integrate the emotions, and we begin to run away from those emotions, because remember that the way that we process trauma, or how trauma is created, is when the filing cabinet in the brain that has all of the data on how to respond to an experience is not there, right? There is no file for this experience. It is an unknown. Okay, that's the relationship with the unknown. An unknown experience occurs. There's no file in the filing cabinet because it's something that we haven't experienced before, or there is a lack of connection and understanding with how to integrate and process and synthesize the experience, and therefore there is a missing link there. So what happens is several things. Biophysically, we begin to increase stress hormones in the body, which essentially is the cortisol that essentially creates major inflammation in the body, and then illness. We talked about that. But before it even gets there, the cortisol chemically, when utilized over time, the connection between cortisol and dopamine is that when there is high stress levels, it completely solidifies the need for dopamine, and we connect the stress that doesn't allow us to stop when we desire something externally. Okay, so we essentially want to keep fulfilling an empty hole within us. It can be with anything. It can be with food. It can be with chocolate. It can be with addictions. It can be with relationships. It can be with certain ways of being, certain emotions that you're playing out. Yet last week we talked about roles that we play, roles that we give one another. Essentially, these roles are chemical formulas that we are addicted to. Okay, and it's a very interesting thing to look at, because when I see the structure, the multidimensional body of a person that has an emotional pattern that is something that they are repeating throughout their entire life, throughout their family ancestral lineage, and then into the generations, into the Akashic records, these repetitive cyclical patterns are biochemical formulas that are crystallized in the multidimensional body of the person. Okay, so they literally form an object, a shape of an energy. Remember, from the morphogenetic field is the information manual of all that comes into form. Okay, and how we come into form is designed by the holographic output of our DNA. Okay, and your DNA is basically holding all of those emotional patterns, programming, basically, right? All of your programming. So all the programming that you've received from the age of 7 until the age of, the womb, from the womb until the age of 7, is essentially a certain database code of programs that are chemical formulas in your body. Okay, so why healing is so difficult for some people, why breaking the habits, why healing profound traumas is so difficult, is because there is a disconnect in the understanding of the biochemical functions that is occurring that then crystallize and write DNA. Okay, over time, if we continue to play out certain chemical formulas in our body, essentially, it's something that becomes a part of our personality. It's part of our survival mechanism. Okay, it goes into the basket of survival mechanism, and then essentially becomes a file in that cabinet that now is solidified. Okay, so how do we shift this? That when we are completely becoming addicted to the dopamine that makes us desire something external, combined with stress, because what happens in an unknown experience, any unknown experience, it could literally be a new place that you're going to, it could be a new career, it could be a new environment, it could be you deciding what you're going to cook today, that essentially causes stress in your body. Again, the trigger for the stress is a biochemical program, and we are playing those out, and essentially to interrupt that program means that we have to know and understand, what do we have to replace the chemical need that is occurring in the body. So this is why it's important to understand the difference between the dopamine and serotonin. Now, serotonin essentially is the bliss chemical. It is true happiness. It is true joy, okay? And so how does one feel when we feel happy, actually releasing that serotonin in the brain? It is fulfillment. And essentially the program is, I have everything I need in this moment and I don't need more. I don't need something external. Okay, so huge difference between them. And the difference and where people get confused between happiness and pleasure is that pleasure is something that cannot be satiated. It's also something that can be practiced individually by yourself. You don't need anyone to do it. You can create pleasure for yourself by playing out and feeding into that dopamine hit, right? You just go ahead and allow yourself to go into that dopamine hit. And essentially, it allows you to feel the pleasure, which is temporary, completely temporary. Temporary meaning that you're always going to need more. Okay? The difference between serotonin is that you don't need more. you are complete with that chemical. So for example, things that cause serotonin are a hug, affection, right? And there are so many studies about the production of serotonin in creating, in communities, and when it becomes social, which is very interesting. Like biochemically, this is something that has been found by the study of monkeys, and the monkeys that have the most serotonin in their brain are because they are, first of all, alpha monkeys, which is very interesting, and also they maintain these communities. They stay in communities, very social. And when we look at the creator chart of ourself, when we take a look at how we are co-creating in this world, part of the ascension process is that we become co-creators, very aware of ourselves and the whole, right? When you are addicted to dopamine chemical hits, okay, whether you are in states of stress, survival, anger, any number of emotions, whatever it is that you are becoming parasitic to. It can be things outside of you, shopping, drugs, chocolate, anything outside of you that you are addicted to is essentially causing this dopamine hit that always requires you to seek for more. So that entire concept and programmed within the multidimensional body is essentially tears in the multidimensional body. You become a black hole. Your geometry becomes inverted. Okay? You leak life force out of your body. So let's take a look at, really briefly, just remind ourselves, what does that look like in the multidimensional body when you are utilizing these chemicals as a result of the emotions? Okay, so let me go ahead and open this really quickly, and I just want to share with you. Okay, so remember that the lower the emotion, the lower the vibrational frequency of the emotion that we're experiencing, also is a heavier, solidified, and more disorganized geometric structure in the body. Okay, the more we come into coherence, the more we come into unity consciousness, the more organized the geometry of the body turns. And I'm literally talking about your DNA. Okay, so there's DNA that looks really disrupted and disorganized and affected tremendously by the imbalance and disharmony over time. The more you come into harmony in the physical body, which is the integration of the mind, body, and soul, essentially the geometry of our DNA also changes. And this is something that we inherit to our children, to the next generation, so on and so forth. So remember that where you are waking up consciousness now is in the middle of all that our ancestors have inherited, that we have inherited from the ancestors. And then, of course, there is the soul, right? That is here, that is all, that becomes aware of itself as you. You are a fractal of infinite potential. And that awakening of that process completely changes the geometry of your DNA. Okay, because you are awakening the ancestral memory. The more that you sit in meditation to do shadow work, the more you deprogram matrix programming, and the more that you embody unity consciousness, because you now begin to activate the DNA of the earth, you begin to remember your past lives, you begin to remember future aspects of yourself. You remember that you are not just the regular quotidian life that we have, everyday experiences. We actually are here with a vibrational mission, you can say, in order to transcend and alchemize. The alchemy of your existence is essentially to transmute these lower frequency disorganized structures into a higher state of frequency. And that is expressed micro, macro, not just in the DNA, but also in the entire shape of your geometry as your body. Why? Because the way that your geometry is structured in the body depends on the health of your body. Okay? Remember that when you are disconnected from source, right? Your source cord is super thin here, right? Like barely non-existent. Okay, so this is what people that I work with look like, that are completely in states of survival, which means that they are producing high levels of cortisol in the body, which means that they are in parasitism, parasitic aspects of co-creation, which means that they are addicted. They are producing and chasing the dopamine that essentially fulfills something. And something that is interesting that I notice in this journey of spiritual awakening with my clients is that we can become addicted to anything, even spirituality, even the idea or the illusion of spirituality can be something that we become addicted to. We chase the chemicals that are created. And so pay attention. Some people that are addicted to listening to spiritual information, remember that we don't want to become the idea of spirituality. You need to embody. You need to become the geometry. You need to become the alchemist. It's a completely different state of being. So if you're a person that just listens to people talking about spirituality, spiritual concepts, but you don't really integrate and practice them in your everyday life, you're not really getting very far. And so this can also be a form of distraction and also a form of addiction. Okay, and I see that a lot in some people that I connect with, that it's like they've heard every single piece of information, but the embodiment of it is a completely different process, right? Olga, you have a question.
Hi, everybody. I have a question about the hormones, about the serotonin.
Yes.
I know that pineal glands plays a major role in producing the serotonin, but I also know that our pineal glands have a tendency to sorry, I cannot speak it.
Yeah, you got it.
And especially with people like my case, I have calcification in my blood vessels, and with a certain age, you get it more and more, it seems to be. So I have two questions about it. Is there a connection between calcified blood vessels and the calcium in our pineal gland? And if there is none, whatever, but how do you know that your pineal gland is calcified, and what can be done about it? That is my question.
Yeah, so how do you know that your pineal gland is calcified? Pretty simple. You basically are not connected to your intuition. You have a very hard time connecting to your intuition. You have a hard time discerning, and you have a lot of issues with trust. Okay, so what happens is that essentially when we don't use an organ or a certain part of the body, over time, anything can become calcified, or anything can become stagnant. Any time that any part of our multidimensional body is not operating in its highest optimum of ebb and flow, which is the law of the universe, we are constantly cycling through life and death. We are receiving and giving. We are continuously moving through emotions, processing them deeply. Anytime we are not doing that, there is something becoming stagnant. So this is where we can start seeing complications in the physical. And it's then going to be producing an effect psychological, which is essentially our connection with the mind body. You're disconnected from the body. So you mentioned blood vessel calcification. So, it's very important to understand our bodies are incredibly complex, and it is an encoded system of information. Okay, so every single part of our body is oscillating at a different vibrational frequency. Every organ has a frequency range that it processes more than others. And essentially, when we get to know these processes, primarily the meridian lines, how they're connected to the endocrine system and then out into the physical body, the chemicals that each one of these glands are producing are basically telling us where our state of consciousness is. So if we are in a state of survival, we are utilizing the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain essentially is in constant state of looking at the future. Okay, it's in constant state of survival. If you are a person that is constantly worried about the future, worried about what's going to happen next, what's going to happen tomorrow, what you're not prepared for, that causes an extreme amount of stress, which then creates the cortisol that then begins to create inflammation in all the body. Now, whatever is triggering the stress that you're experiencing is also encoded with information, okay? So for example, if the stress is a product of feelings of unworthiness, feeling that we are not good enough, that we're not complete, of shame, of guilt, different parts of the body that store that memory trauma are going to be affected, okay? So for example, let's say your blood vessels are having an issue, has to do with the ability to accept the body, accept integration. Complications with blood have to do with our life force and our ability to feel worthy and receiving love and receiving yourself as a whole. There's a deep connection between the sun, which is essentially the vital energy source of all living organisms. So if you're a person that doesn't go out in nature, is completely severed from nature, doesn't spend time in the sun, it can also cause blood complications and problems. So this is just an example to show you that there are many that you need to get to know yourself deeply in order to understand where are your complications. And each person is different because, we all have different kinds of traumas. However, we are all the same in that we are either operating from fear or love. Bottom line, okay? All we have to do with whatever many stories or complications or physical blockages that you have is transmute and alchemize the fear programs into love, and this is how you decalcify those parts of your body. This is how you destagnate any one of those parts of your body. And it's simply the shift in perception of the thought that is residing within that trauma as a result of that trauma that releases that information. So working with the pineal gland is really, really important because the calcification of the pineal gland affects many different kinds of processes in the body. And the number one is the integration of your trust in yourself. It is incredibly difficult to build trust in the self when you have a calcified pineal gland. And another part of this that occurs is that we are the prefrontal cortex that is in charge of which essentially it's called the Jiminy Cricket, the one that tells you, what is right, what is wrong. When we have a dysfunctional prefrontal cortex, it's really difficult for the human to discern. Okay, so there are several chemicals here. Let me find what I want to show you here that are affecting the calcification of the pineal gland. So how do we alchemize that? Now, we talked about this in my alchemy course, but essentially when there is calcification in the pineal gland, the vibrational frequency of the overall structure is operating at very low frequency. Okay, so there's a couple ways. Remember that when we begin to alchemize low emotions into high, we become this piezoelectric system that is igniting, okay, this ignition process. It occurs as a result of the transmutation. So let's say the thought form in the moment is, I'm not good enough. Okay, when we completely interrupt that thought form and immediately shift back into a 0 point, back into the connection with the self, back into the neutral point, non-judgmental observation, you are interrupting those neural pathways that are being strengthened. Now, the neural pathways that are being strengthened can create calcification in the body when the low frequency is being produced by those neural pathways. Okay, so let's say I'm not worthy enough creates really a need for attention, a need for recognition, external recognition. So we are addicted. We are addicted to people, what they say, what they do, whether they look at us, whether they connect with us. And it's just this constant searching for that. So that's where you're going to start having blockages. Okay. So let's say we shift that into a higher vibrational frequency, connection with the self, self-acceptance, immediate self-awareness. The breathing in combination with the new emotion, okay, the pulling of the lower energy from the root into the pineal gland produces this piezoelectric generator that transmutes that energy. And you are essentially shifting from that energy into a higher moving frequency, okay? So these calcite crystals can become electrically activated in order to transduce electromagnetic waves. You are shifting from this crystallized matter into a wave form. That is the alchemization process. That is the decalcifying process. When you break the crystallized aspect of yourself, when you break that repetitive program, deprogram, and shift into a higher wavelength of vibrational frequency, it becomes an electromagnetic wave that is now emitting from this body. And that essentially changes and shifts from one form of energy into another. You become a transduction. That's essentially what we're doing. Now, how this looks in the multidimensional body essentially is that we essentially begin to activate every single emotion that we begin to change. We begin to activate layers and layers of the body that are decalcifying many systems in the body, because it's not just the pineal gland that becomes calcified. Many of the parts of the body, and when I say calcification, I'm talking about crystallization of lower thought forms, which is the repetition. Anytime that you are repeating something, we are dying. We are going into a state of disconnect, okay? So remember that consciousness is the awareness that when observed, it shifts, it's changing. Constant change, constant movement, constant flow is what we want to create in the body. Anything from stagnation into flow is healing, and it is expanding, because that flow essentially allows the body to come into the 0 point that allows you to navigate more dimensions than one. And that's how you become aware. You are awakening the ancestral genetic memory of yourself as more than just the physical. You begin to remember yourself as all of these other dimensional aspects. Okay, so that is essentially how that is working. Now let's go into taking a look at what happens in the body. One moment. We have a question. Hold on, I see your questions, everyone. Let's go ahead and see here. When we are embodied at 0 point and operating at higher vibrational consciousness, how do we know what kind of decision we need to make towards the direction in life for the betterment of ourselves and the collective as a whole? So it's funny that you asked this question, because part of the reason why I'm talking about this today is specifically to talk about this aspect of discernment. You know, how do we know? Okay, essentially, one of the things that I discovered along this journey of this work that we're doing is that when I began to deprogram my own programming, first of all, you have to let go of all of the false beliefs. Okay, that's number one. Now, this is a difficult thing, because in the process of letting go of false beliefs is essentially the deprogramming of the matrix. You are decoupling from the program of the matrix, and the matrix is a creation of the reptilian brain. Okay, the reptilian brain that creates the hologram of separation. This is really important to understand, because what is creating holographically the matrix of dualistic perception is separation. Now, we exist simultaneously in many dimensions. Within this dimensional plane, we are existing in the matrix, and we are also existing in many higher dimensional manifestations. Some of you exist more in higher dimensional manifestations than others. Some of you are deeply embedded in the matrix and are often struggling in that matrix. But once you remember who you are and you awaken that ancestral memory out of the dormant state of hypnosis, you literally begin to remember who you are. You're activating DNA. You are accessing, ancestral memory, past lives, future lives, and you begin to remember that you are not just this body with this name and the stories that were handed to you through your life. And the programming of the matrix, which is incredibly structured, okay? So your gender roles, okay, religious influences, ideas about money, financial institutions and structures that create certain, economic structures in our reality. They play a tremendous role in the way that we perceive ourselves and the world around us. We have to deprogram those things by understanding how they function. And it's important that you do this because if you don't understand, first of all, how you are manipulated through your chemicals in your body, through the illusion of separation, you will always fall victim to being in states of suffering and survival. And survival is an illusion, okay? Survival is a lie. We do not need to exist in a constant state of survival, but the matrix solidifies that belief system within us. And it does it in many different ways. It powerfully makes us believe that we need to be in surviving, that we need to have a 9-to-5 job, that we need to pay the bills, that we need to pay taxes, that we need to, have children, we need to eat certain foods. Even health has become stressful and something of survival, right? So everything is turned and inverted, and this is really important to understand because how you discern is essentially between the inversion of nature and nature, natural harmonious existence. Disharmony and harmony are two different things, okay? Just in the same way that becoming a parasite with dopamine addiction is different. Running from pleasure, right? Constant pleasure is very different than being in high states of bliss. Okay, true happiness, which you don't need anything to exist in that joy, in that happiness. You need nothing from the external to exist in that happiness. And that happiness emerges from the 0 point of non-judgment, which can only be cultivated by the deprogramming of all the false illusions that we have adopted or indoctrinated ourselves by not questioning whether they are true and whether they are in alignment with nature and in harmony with nature and the all. So our discernment becomes refined as we deprogram matrix programmings of separation, programmings of fear, okay? So really important in your ascension, don't force yourself to see things as love because most people, they don't know what love is at all. We don't know what love is. We are learning and we are here to learn love. That's exactly what we're here to do. The embodiment of love is a complete activation of this human body. It's the cultivation of the human organism into its most optimum state. That's what love is. Love is not an emotion, okay? So the cultivation of your organism into its highest operating state is what is in coherence with nature. It is in coherence with the earth. It is in coherence with the universe and the multiverse at large, which is where your holographic DNA is activated and your ancestral memory is activated. You reconnect to the DNA of the earth. You remember who you are, all of your lives. You remember your future lives. And essentially, you begin to remember yourself as this universal multidimensional citizen, this essence, non-physical essence, non-form. Okay, so you go from duality into unity consciousness, essentially non-form, because the power of the human is the transmutation process of transmuting from the physical form into an interdimensional aspect. Okay, so what discernment is based on is the ability to understand how to know the difference and recognize the difference between the inversion of nature, the manipulation of nature. Anything that is manipulative is the inversion of nature. This can be people, places, things. And this is a very important topic because the manipulation of things is something that we don't understand very much because it's not something that's talked about a lot. But any time that we are allowing ourselves to be manipulated or are manipulating others, we don't understand how we manipulate others. Sometimes we think that we're doing good for people, but actually it's coming from a wounded masculine or a wounded feminine. Okay, so those subconscious beliefs, anytime that you are playing out the victim role, anytime that you are the aggressor, for example, those are all forms of manipulation. The true embodied organism that is operating at its highest state in alignment with nature is a sovereign being that is completely self-empowered, that is becoming a source of all of their needs, and again, that is creating that serotonin as a result of coming into a bliss state, which is a completely different geometric structure within the body. You are activating and connecting to the waveform that is in harmony with the collective. So we need to be very, very mindful. And the first step is to take retreat to deprogram all of these imbalances within the subconscious operating system that continues to make us be in states of separation. Okay, remember that your state of creation is a product of your belief systems. So as long as you are in belief in the perception of separation, you will always feel disconnected. Okay, it is super important to understand that. Now, the center point of the harmonious integration of yourself, which is you becoming whole, right? So you become this yin and yang, where your feminine and your masculine have been healed, which means you deprogrammed false belief systems of imbalance, the inversions of nature. Okay, and when we are no longer inverting nature through our thoughts and our actions, when we are no longer at war with the natural laws of the universe, which begin with the self. So when you are no longer at war with yourself, remember that the external matrix is a reflection of you. So if you are at war with yourself internally, you will always see war external to you. You will always participate in the co-creation of war. You will always co-create in the participation of suffering and death, essentially. And we don't realize how we participate in those things. We don't realize that our actions can cause severe suffering to another person. It can be something that you're buying that is parasitic to the collective. Okay, little clothes that are made by children, for example, you are contributing to systems. So this level of awakening, coming into ascension, is more than just this illusion of you know, some spiritual ideology. It's not the clothes you wear, it's not the what you look like, it's none of that. It is absolutely having to do with the responsibility that you're taking for your actions in a state of creation. And the inversion of all that on the higher levels. Now I really want to talk about this because I get a lot of questions about this, that when we are parasitic in the physical realm, we are also parasitic in the interdimensional realm. So what that looks like essentially is that the inversion of nature on the higher realms is essentially the interference of another organism's free will. Okay, so let's say you buy clothes that are made by children. Okay, you're unconscious to the fact that they're made. It doesn't mean that you're not causing suffering. You are still causing suffering. That's why waking up your awareness and becoming very accountable for your actions is absolutely important. There's no escape from the consequences of your actions. Again, we live in the world of cause and effect. That's one of the laws of the universe. Okay, so let's say you purchase these clothes from children, and so your behavior essentially is parasitic. You contribute to the parasitism of this earth. Okay, so on the higher levels, on the higher planes, what does that look like interdimensionally? Okay, in dream state, when you leave your body, the vibrational frequency of your whole, because we are unconscious, we are in this dormant state, we cannot transcend certain dimensional levels. You can only move through certain dimensional planes, okay, because of your resonance. And what will happen most likely in the lower dimensional planes that you have access to will essentially, you will also exchange in parasitic form. Now, how do you know the difference between what's good for the collective and the whole is that you respect the laws of the universe. And I've talked about the laws of the universe in this previous series. But essentially, one of the laws that we need to understand is the law of interference, and any time that we are affecting the free will of another. Okay, this is the inversion of nature. Now, when we are utilizing our reptilian brain and we essentially become reptiles, parasitic reptiles, reptilians that essentially are chasing the dopamine and then becoming consumers or addicted to all external stimulation, we are also becoming parasited by the matrix. The matrix feeds off our unconscious behavior, our consumerism, and essentially it monopolizes our life force into the feeding of parasitic structures. In the interdimensional realms, the interactions with reptilian organisms that are in resonance with ourselves also become parasitic. This is where you start to see interference of these higher entities, right? We interact with entities that essentially are interfering. And it's not an interfering that comes from the powerless, because everything that we experience is based on our agreement. But just like you buy clothes from little children and you don't know that little children are making your clothes, it's in the same way these higher entities are also interfering with you, because we live in a chain, an interdimensional, interconnected system, and all of it is you. It's starting with you. It's a reflection of you. So if you are having parasitic interdimensional experiences that you want to transmute and alchemize, you must shift your perception in how you are seeing and experiencing those things. Okay, Maria, thank you so much for that super chat. Love you. Thank you so much for being here. David, thank you so much for that super chat. Greatly appreciate your support, guys. It really means a lot to me. Let me come to the next question. Maria says, how to know that we are stepping out from the matrix? So again, it is absolute awareness of yourself and your actions. Okay, so know thyself is, you know, an age-long word saying that is depicting essentially what is the key to the liberation of the matrix. And remember that the matrix, we are not victims to the matrix. The matrix is one dimension that we exist within, because we exist within many dimensions. And some of you have created bliss in your body. You are living in states of bliss. You have learned how to turn your body into a Merkava of navigation into higher dimensional planes. You have connected, you have woken up your ancestral memory, you know who you are, and you are literally operating in that state of integration. You are experiencing synchronicities, you're experiencing miracles, okay? All of these magic abilities that all of these sages in history have been able to access are a simple part of our organism and what we're capable of doing. So how do you know that you're stepping from the matrix? Is that you're no longer contributing and participating to compartmentalized programs within yourself and externally, that you are not feeding in to the addiction part of you into one of co-creation, okay? So anytime that you need from the external to feed something internal, you are embodying a parasitic aspect of yourself. When you learn how to become the source of all of your needs, of all of your requirements, you no longer desire, okay? You don't desire sex, you don't desire you know, money, you don't desire stimulation. Even those of you that are utilizing drugs supposedly for spiritual ascension, there's no such thing, okay? The only way to truly alchemize and crystallize and decrystallize your multidimensional body into a higher functioning organism is through shadow work, the deep integration and deep deprogramming of these programs, and the reintegration of the fractals of yourself as you awaken that ancestral memory. And that can only be done through that shadow work, which is necessary to create biochemical changes that change neural pathways and activate your DNA. Okay, so this ascension process is about knowing yourself. Get to know your organs, the information that you have in the body, the emotions that are stored in the body, and become aware of what your input is. What is your contribution to this existence? Are you parasitic or are you a co-creator? Completely different things. And as I mentioned, one is in harmony with nature, okay, and the other one is in disharmony with nature. Okay, we are not in harmony with nature. What you do is in a state of separation. So this is how we want to kind of begin to observe those patterns. When your internal state of being is not affected or dependent on anything external, you are not in the matrix. That's exactly right, Craig. You got it. That's exactly right. Excellent. Excellent work. When we no longer need outside sources and others to fulfill our needs, why do we need others in our life, such as business, personal relationship? Yeah, so the thing is this: when you are no longer in a parasitic state of existence where you are chasing the dopamine in order to satiate an emptiness within you, unresolved pain, unresolved sorrow, unresolved emotions, okay, you will always seek externally. But what happens when you embody and are creating serotonin, for example, higher levels of vibrational frequency, higher emotions as a result of the non-judgment 0 point, which is cultivated over time. When you embody the 0 point, that serotonin becomes activated, and essentially you create your natural DMT, okay? Natural DMT, which is essentially the chemical that allows you to begin to interact interdimensionally. There is no replacement. You can't use chemicals to actually transfix or to change your DNA. Utilization of drugs or the implementation of these external chemicals is just the temporary experience of something that has to be crystallized in the body and DNA. Okay, so what happens essentially is that we are one. When you begin to activate that DMT and you begin to see other dimensional layers of yourself, you begin to utilize your intuition, the veils fall, and you begin to recognize yourself as one with everything. This is essentially how you end up embodying states of awareness, creation, pure knowing. And your relationships will change. You will understand why, what drives you to pursue business, what drives you to pursue personal relationships. And it changes the game completely because your intention for those relationships are a completely different thing. Okay? When we are in states of parasitism and survival, chasing dopamine hits of addiction, we are always going to be attracting and engaging in experiences that will trigger those chemicals in the body, which means chaos, suffering, and experiences that the physical will feel in a visceral manner. And so that's the difference. When you begin to activate these higher frequency states, the difference between the two is that one is physical and the other is etheric. When you enter into a bliss state as a result of the 0 point, your relationships become etheric. Okay? They are energetic, interconnected, manifested in an intentional space, and everything changes. It's not about survival. It's about a coherent and symbiotic exchange with your environment. So remember that all of these ideas of business and things like this, they are all a product of the matrix, and it doesn't mean that they're bad and wrong and that we cannot use them. They are just part of the structure of this reality. But how you utilize that is all dependent on your vibrational frequency. And the difference between the results of what you get depend on your vibrational frequency and your intention again. Okay? So remember that in business or in personal relationships, if you don't maintain your vibrational frequency in resonance with whatever you're trying to experience or attain, it will always fall out of alignment. So if you want to, become successful in a business, there are certain laws to manifestation. And the number one law is detachment. Okay, in order to become abundant, in order to become successful, the first thing we have to do is come back to the 0 point. Why? Because the 0 point is the state of creation over matter. You master matter. If you don't know how to embody the 0 point and you're trying to achieve success in business, you're not going to do it. Because you will always be attached and you are always survival. Survival, biochemically, bioelectrical, when you are in a state of survival, you cannot manifest things. Okay? So again, you might come into states of power. Let's say you rise up to become a CEO, but you will always be tied and limited in your ability to manifest by your ambition, by your vices. Again, these are biochemical dopamine hits that the human becomes addicted to, that power, to the need, to the desire for amassing fortunes and material goods. Okay, so your God is money, your God is good, your goods, material things. And so that's caps the level of your success. Okay, but when you start coming one with yourself and you start cultivating yourself at a higher frequency, there is no limit to what you can get, what you can manifest. And the difference between that is that you no longer desire material things, you no longer desire external things. You are in a constant state of satiated bliss state. Okay, there to that organism, because you are going in a centripetal spin, you become a magnetic core of attraction. And now all things come to you which are in alignment. And what happens is that the person that is in this state of magnetic alignment, this magnetic co-creation, their intention is no longer for personal wellness, right? For personal self-service. Okay, so you're going to cap your abundance by being self-service. If you are service to self, if everything is about your survival and your well-being and no one else's, there will always be a limit to what you can manifest. But if you forego and you no longer desire anything, there is no limit to what you can attract and what you can bring into your manifestation. Okay, and usually what you manifest at that point is no longer about your person, but it's about the collective. This is another part to the question of discernment earlier. How do you know how to discern what is right for yourself or the collective? It's the same process. When you know yourself, you know nature, you know the earth, you know the universe, because it is a reflection of yourself. You are a fractal of the whole. So that's why returning back to yourself, returning back to the 0 point is the key to unlocking this multiverse, this universe. It's the key to unlocking the greater whole. That reconnection with yourself, that profound knowing of yourself, is the knowing of how this universe functions and the laws of the universe which we operate by. Okay, so I guess there's another element to it that I'm going to talk about I'm doing a course on Portal to Ascension. It's a 2-day retreat. If you guys want to check it out and join me, it would be amazing to see you there. It's all about alchemization. Everything that we're talking today, we're going to deep dive into the embodiment of that. I have a very specific structure to how we're going to do that. We're going to focus on deprogramming of the things that are blocking you from embodying this high state of creation. We're going to become familiar with higher states of creation, and we're going to learn how to alchemize. And the alchemization process is about all desires that are external to yourself, mind, body, and soul, physical, mental, emotional. Essentially, all of those are what are causing you to create limitations in the life. So we're going to learn how to deprogram that. And you can register for that on Portal to Ascension. I'll put the link in the chat below for you to check it out. But essentially, this alchemization process that we are learning how to do is key to longevity, so long life. It's the key to healing the body, mind, and soul. And it's the key to activating higher faculties. Okay, so all of your intuitive abilities and your the life of synchronicity and magic is emerging from this coherence that is created mind, body, and soul. And that's what we want to create in the physical. Okay. All right, so let me come over here. Oh, Charles, you're coming to the retreat. That's awesome. Isla says, will food become obsolete when reaching the 0 point? Well, my love, I'll tell you one thing. And I'm going to say this, please understand something very important, because we're in states of survival, we kind of, we want to desperately get to our destination the quickest way possible, okay? And in spiritual work, there is no magic pill, there is no shortcut. The best way to embody your highest level and of being is to get to know yourself as soon as possible. And the process of getting to know yourself is the process of deprogramming these matrix programming, all states of suffering. And the result of that is that you deprogram desire. You deprogram the need for temporary things. Even your incarnation in this earth is temporary. Okay? Remember, anything that repeats is dormant. It is in hypnosis. Okay? In order to hypnotize, remember, we have to repeat certain words and sayings in order to get you into a state of hypnosis. Okay? When you are unconscious, you are just repeating programs that are inherited by family, ancestors. Where is your level of consciousness and self-awareness where you wake up and you break those patterns? Where is that? The interruption of those processes is the beginning of your awakening. And until you wake up consciousness into those repetitive cycles, you will always seek externally. Now, when you are doing this work, what I have noticed is that my desire for things that are not necessary for the nourishment of this body in harmonious balance with all parts, it diminishes. So when I am in states of survival, fears, emotions, anxieties, depression, again, the same biochemicals that create addiction, like dopamine, are being stimulated, and actually even by your biome. Okay, so remember that because we are fractal beings, different parts of your body are also storing the memories that you have memorized into this body through your actions and thoughts over time. So if your actions and thoughts over time are survival, fear, and separation, need for protection, your biome is going to program into its flora, into the parasites that now are manifested through your own parasitic behavior. Okay, fractal, remember, if you're a parasite, you have parasites. Okay, you have parasites. And they can be physical or they can be etheric. Okay, we are hosting, you become a host for parasites. So what happens is that you desire sugar, let's say. Why? Because when you eat sugar, it creates that dopamine rush, and now you feel good for 5 minutes. Okay, so once you have the sugar crash, and now the cortisol sets in of stress and anxiety because you didn't learn how to regulate your nervous system, you need the next hit, right? So a little bit more sugar, right? And so you live in this rat race of repetitive cycles, and that entire state of existence is the matrix. Okay, that's what I think Dave was saying earlier, that you essentially become the matrix. That's exactly what he was saying. Okay, so what happens when you deprogram this is you realize, hey, looks like I've been doing a lot of actions to feed emotional imbalances within me. Okay, it could be smoking, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be attention from people, it could be shopping, it could be money, it could be work, it could be food, it could be chocolate cake. Okay, so all of these addictions begin to dissolve, and what happens is that you now learn. Now let's talk about the other side of it. So now you recognize you're in rat race patterns of addiction. The opposite of that is profound fulfillment. You deprogram what's causing you the addiction by accessing the emotion that you don't know how to process. When you identify the emotion that you haven't learned how to process, you become free. And the problem with us is that we become deeply addicted because our emotions are terrifying to us. We are afraid of our emotions. Okay? We fear anxiety. And anxiety makes us feel uncomfortable. We don't know what to do with it. So we prolong and we sustain the feeling of discomfort, and we paralyze ourselves in the constant feeling of discomfort. We repeat the feeling of discomfort over and over again because we don't know how to break it. Okay? So what happens is that the person exists in a constant state of discomfort and anxiety. All it took for that individual to shift and change that is for it to sit for a moment with the anxiety, allow yourself to feel all the uncomfortable feelings that come up in that anxiety, and watch that emotion transmute by observing it in your body. And it can take, okay, let's say you've done it all your life, maybe it'll take 10 minutes maximum of feeling that emotion. Now, the difference is this. Here's the difference, again, between dopamine and serotonin. One of them is pleasure and the other one is actual bliss. In the process of feeling emotions, we gain pleasure from our own suffering, believe it or not. We are addicted to the discomfort because it's all we've known. It's all we've known all our lives. It's a biochemical addiction. And so what happens is that when we feel the anxiety in meditation, those of you that sit down in meditation, you start to feel the anxiety, and in all of that discomfort, believe it or not, you're creating chemicals of dopamine in your body. You become addicted to that anxiety, to that suffering, and all of your body begins to feel stress and stress and stress and stress and stress, and it feels familiar. Okay, so it's an illness, right? It's an illness. Because the body deteriorates over time, and actually neural pathways, you actually create neural death by doing this. You're killing neurons in your brain as a result of the continued stress that you create. So and in addition to many other diseases that result as a result of this, simply because instead of observing the emotion, you got stuck in the feeling body, in the sensation body. We are addicted to sensations. The sensations of pleasure, whether it's tactile, touch, through sex, through addictions, through food, through the taste buds of your mouth, through the smells of your nose, through the things that you're hearing. We can be addicted to music. I mean, you can be addicted to anything. That's the thing. And it causes temporary pleasure and temporary release of chemicals. And so you have died, essentially, because you can't go beyond those feelings and emotions. That's it. That's your life experience. And people, even in the arts and culture and industries of this world, of this matrix, they really push you to create your identity based on what your likes are. Okay, what's your personality? Don't you have a personality? Don't you like certain music? Don't you like certain foods? Like, that's what they push as getting to know yourself. The temporary pleasures that you create as a result of survival. Your personality is a survival mechanism. That's something that we need to understand to wake up from the matrix. When you deprogram your programming, you don't have a personality. You become all and nothing. You don't need to define yourself as any one thing because you remember that you are all. And that's where the human organism begins to experience freedom for the first time in its existence, and something that many people have never felt, which is peace, harmony. Totally different thing. Okay? So when we embody and break these patterns of addiction in the body and mind, peace and harmony can be created by simply feeling the difficult emotion. Okay, it's important to, here's the thing about feeling emotions. I'm going to have a workshop on emotions in just a moment, and I'm going to put it up on my website, because it's going to be a boot camp, emotional boot camp. We need to learn how to experience emotions. So when you feel the emotion at first, become aware of what it's doing in your body, because this is, again, know yourself. You're going to understand what parts of your body have been affected by the emotions that you're feeling. Okay. And secondly, you're going to understand where you're storing your trauma. Super important. If you have an illness, you're going to understand why and where it is, where it's emerging, and the emotion that's causing it. When you can transmute the emotion that's causing the illness will no longer exist. This is the law of how this body functions. Okay? And I have healed myself many, many times, even brought myself back from death when I realized my participation in the creation of that disharmonious existence. Okay, so I am living proof, and there are many proofs in this world that have also experienced these things, that are healing themselves from states of suffering into harmonious expressions of co-creation. So what we want to do in feeling the emotion is that after you observe what it's doing in your body, that you simply observe the emotion. And what happens is, actually, emotions are really short-lived. They're very short-lived. They have very short lifespans. But we make our entire life emotions. You have a traumatic experience with your mother, that's it. You are now the traumatized child. Your entire life changes. Your career choices, your relationship choices are all a product of this one trauma that happened to you. Okay, your food choices. Okay, we have abusive father, let's say a sexually abusive father, changes who you are completely. People develop food disorders. People develop all kinds of things in the destruction of the self as a result of an experience, a temporary experience. So we have to shift our perception and no longer compartmentalize the perception, but understand that we are living in constant life and death experiences in order to experience the all. We have to experience all things here. That's what we're here to do. Okay? So from there, essentially, the cultivation of your body in the sustainability of these chemicals is essentially the activation of your multidimensional body, the Merkaba that is created as a result of rebalancing your energy and where your energy is directed. When you are in survival mode, when you are parasite seeking external, you are always going to bleed your life force out of your body. Your connection to your source is limited. When you come back into harmony, you begin to manage your lower chakras, you master them, because the lower chakras are just like emotions, temporary filters of perception that once we deprogram, we now activate the higher faculties of the body, which create longevity, health, vitality, youth, rejuvenation. You want the fountain of life, you begin to learn how to spin your vortex. And there are many scriptures through history, everything from the Sufism to Taoists to name it, Zoroastrian, so many different sects that have that hidden this information, okay? And they talk about it, but they don't talk about it directly, in that we have to cultivate and activate the Merkaba of the body in order to navigate higher dimensional expressions, okay? So you become the UFO, you become this high center of co-creation. Will I have access to the recording of the retreat if I can't make it to the session? Yes, the retreat will be recorded and you can have lifetime access to it, as well as all of the material and the structured outline of what we're going to be working on that weekend. So if you can't be there in person, just register and we will send you everything. I will also do a follow-up Q&A 1 month after the retreat for Q&A questions, following up for anything that you guys are experiencing, blockages or where you feel limited. Isla says, so fair to notion that breatharianism is not real. So fair to notion that breatharianism. So I am not an advocate of any kind of diet or any kind of, here's my belief on this. Every single human needs to understand what their journey is. Some of you have ancestral traumas around food and around nourishment of the organism, whether it's through famine, war, sexual abuse, that is encoded in your DNA that now in this lifetime create a disharmonious perception of what nourishment means. Okay, so once you heal that, and if you heal that, and you no longer feel the desire for eating food a lot, which naturally happens when you meditate and deprogram. Okay, this is what I was telling earlier, that when you meditate for long times, when I was meditating for 4 or 5 months in a retreat, I didn't eat much at all. I would eat 1 meal a day because I would be in 9 hours of meditation. And because the body is being nourished by another source of frequency, the body doesn't need that. The problem with humans is that they're like, oh, I want to do that. And, they just stop eating. And that's absolutely not the way it functions. This is something that emerges naturally as a result of meditation. First, you have to learn how to sit in Vipassana. Second, you need to learn how to deprogram matrix programming, and then understand how to utilize this multidimensional body. In order to not desire food or to nourish the body from the source, you have to learn how to activate your geometry in a way that you are in harmony with higher bands of frequency. Because higher bands of frequency create nourishment at the cellular level, reconstructing the body. Okay, and if you are a person that is coming from a place of lack, fear, separation, trying to do something like breatharianism, you're going about it the completely wrong way, and it can cause major imbalances. And there's really no need for that, because this organism is not here to suffer more. It's only here to understand itself as the all. Okay, so I'm not an advocate of any specific diets of any kind. I think that you need to eat intuitively. You need to do your shadow work. You need to do your emotional work. You need to regulate your nervous system. And once you regulate your nervous system and cultivate, over time, this 0 point, you are deeply using food to heal your body. You're not living to eat. You're eating to live, essentially. It's nourishing the body with all the vitamins that are required to make yourself very healthy. Okay, so that is intuitive eating that is cultivated with the reconnection of mind-body. It's absolutely essential. Okay, can you get the neurons back if they died? No, you cannot. Once those neurons are dead, it's very difficult. But the thing is that you can build new neural pathways with new programs. Okay, so this is really important. Once those neurons are dead, okay, you can create new neurons by creating new pathways, okay, which means new programs. So if your programs are self-sustaining, healthy for your body and mind, this is what you want to cultivate in yourself, okay? So when we do shadow work and raise our level of consciousness, our ability to process and assimilate higher levels of information increases, and our ease of attracting greater flow of higher levels of co-creation and experiences. Yes, that's right. That's correct. Your ability to process and assimilate higher levels of information increases. It absolutely does. Why? Because when you quiet the reptilian brain, the analytical brain, you are also shrinking the root, the sacral, and the solar chakra. When you deprogram matrix programming, these shrink automatically because you are unloading all of the heavy crystallized frequency that is expanding it in out of balance disharmony. Okay. And so wherever energy goes is where you are cultivating and what you are manifesting. So if your energy is cultivating in survival, that's where all of the density of your frequency is going to be at. And you can't create when you're in low density frequency. You just can't. It doesn't work, right? So as you begin to deprogram, those lower chakras begin to shrink in a way that you begin to cultivate the heart, the throat, the third eye, which are operating at higher frequencies, which means that you have access to higher bands of frequency as well. Okay, you are in alpha state, okay, which is in a state of creativity and flow at the bare minimum. And then you are cultivating the ability to change your brain waves into higher functioning brain waves. Okay, meditation, creativity, gamma beta, you can go as deep as those, and your brain waves are deeply connected with how many dimensions you are able to navigate. Okay, the goal is not to navigate dimensions. The goal is to become one and to become aware and to integrate yourself as the all. That's the goal of that work. And so that's a lot of information. Okay. So those of you that do hypnotherapy with me, you are beginning to access your past lives, your future lives, and all of those awareness changes your vibrational frequency. So your vibrational frequency shifts the moment you become aware of a past life or you become aware of a future life. This literally changes the structure of your DNA. It activates DNA because you begin to remember yourself as the all. And so those memories are encoded with massive amounts of information that allow you to heal and integrate this body. Okay, so yes, we are able to integrate these higher bands of frequency. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and come over here into the questions now. Jeff, thank you so much for your super chat. Love you. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. Mama Ren, thank you so much. That's so kind. I'm so grateful for your support, guys. You guys are so amazing. Let's get into our meditation, okay? So we're going to start by getting really nice and comfortable. We're going to breathe deeply. And exhale. And with every breath you take, coming into a state of complete relaxation and calm. Breathing. Bring yourself back into your body. Reconnect deeply with your body. And come into a stillness. Go ahead and begin to breathe from your abdomen. Okay, abdominal breathing, super important to relax the nervous system. Okay, when you're breathing down to the solar plexus, you are literally massaging the part of your body that allows you to come into a state of relaxation, the psoas. Okay, so breathe down to the belly, expanding that belly. You also massage the spinal cord that allows you to neutralize that nervous system. Breathing deeply, bringing yourself into a deepened state of stillness and begin the process of observation. Allow yourself to sit as still as possible. Breathing. Okay. And as you allow yourself to come into a state of complete relaxation and calm, you're going to begin by shrinking the root chakra down to the size of a dime. Going to go up to the sacral. Go ahead and shrink it down to the size of a dime. Going to go up to the solar. Go ahead and shrink it down to the size of a dime. Going to go up to your heart chakra. Go ahead and expand that heart chakra, opening the center of unconditional love and coherence, expanding the throat, expanding the third eye. Go ahead and activate your crown, the seventh and eighth chakra. Connecting to source. I want you to visualize the 13 layers of your body all around you. And you're going to begin to clear them, clearing the debris in the 13 layers of the body all around you. Visualize all bodies becoming clear. Notice how you become lighter, you feel lighter. Breathing. Okay, let go of the week, of the month, of the past 24 hours. Let it go. Breathing. Go ahead and visualize a powerful green life force running up from the center of the earth into your body, creating a vortex of energy. From source, go ahead and bring down a powerful golden cosmic energy combining with the green. Take 10% back down to the center of the earth. Take 80% up to the crown of your head, coating the outside of your field. Go ahead and call back your life force from all people, places, and things. Bring back your energy into your body. Bring your awareness back into your body, to yourself. You begin to recognize why you do things, why you are attracted to certain people, places, and things. As you begin to call your energy back, you begin to notice where your energy is leaking. You can oftentimes begin to realize that you've been spending a lot of energy subconsciously on external things. So go ahead and call back your energy back into your body. Take that final 10% of green and gold and bring it into the body now. Nourish your body. Heal your body. Now that you're reconnected with your body, allow yourself to heal this body, sending that earth and cosmic energy to all the parts of the body that need more attention, that need healing, that need love. Deepen your self-awareness. Deepen your relaxed state. Deepen and focus your sense of observation. Deepen your stillness. And as you're still, noticing how the body wants to control, allowing yourself to come into surrender and release. As you breathe deeply into the base of the spine, beginning to bring awareness to the muscles in the body. And as you begin to release the muscles and the tension in the body, noticing thoughts and emotions that are stored in that tension, just observing. Notice how your breathing becomes more expanded. Notice how your muscles want to sometimes continue retracting back into that contraction. And just gently, compassionately working with your body back into the 0 point. Your breath is your friend. With every breath you take, you massage the body from the inside out, coming into a state of nourishing. The same way that a mother's stroke on the back of a head or the back of your back as a child helped you come into a state of calm. Imagine that you're doing that by breathing deeply inside of you. As you are massaging the inside of your body, you're caressing with your breath the body into a state of calm. As you begin to bring yourself into a state of compassion with your body. What have you been running away from? Notice this week, what have you been avoiding, resisting, rejecting? What have you been in denial of? What have you been escaping, resisting? What are you running away from? For some of you, this question might trigger pain in the body. I just want you to breathe through, relaxing the muscles as you release the pain from the body. Allow yourself to deepen the relaxation in the body from all the muscles, from all the tension, anything that's being suppressed, anything that you're holding on to, trying to control. Remember that control is an illusion. You cannot control anything. You cannot control anything. You are not the body. You are not the emotions. You are not your emotions. Breathe. Sometimes the body goes into panic when it hears that. You are not the identities that you create for yourself, the labels that you put on yourself. You are not the personalities that you hold on to in order to be accepted by different groups. Perhaps you're a chameleon. Breathe yourself back into your center. Reconnect with your body. Breathing. Continue to release any tension in the body. You are not your emotions. You are not the stress that you feel. You are not the stress that you feel. And as you repeat these to yourself, there will be a question that begins to emerge as you realize that you really are not those things. But the question will be, well, what are you? What are you? Who are you? This is the beginning of getting to know yourself. Breathe. For now, you don't need to answer anything. You just need to observe. It's in the observation that the answers will emerge. You are not your identities, the identities that you create for yourself. Identities are temporary. Identity is temporary. It's temporary in your lifespan, it's temporary in the phases of your life, it's temporary in the evolution and the healing of yourself. It's temporary. Breathe. You are not the fears that you feel. All the things that you fear, you are not those fears. You are not the victim roles that you play. Okay, so all those victim roles are designed with a means to an end, and that end is always love. It's always the absolute. So dissolve, observe these parts of you that want to play out victim roles in any way, and begin to notice little bits of empowerment, and those are the ancestral memory that begins to recognize itself as all and nothing. It begins to emerge from there. For some of you, it might be really subtle. For some of you, it might be really strong. Just observe without judgment. You are not the anger that you feel. Lots of people are completely identified with their anger, angry at themselves. Okay, there is no self. There is no self to be angry at. That self is a temporary child, temporary pain, temporary perceptions. Okay. Temporary angers. You are not the anger towards the world outside of you, the anger towards injustices. You are not that anger. Towards people, anger towards people that do wrong things. You are not that anger. You are not that resentment. You are not that suffering. Breathing deeply. Remembering to breathe down to the base of your spine. Some of you might start having memories coming up of all of the things that we're bringing up here. You're just going to observe without judgment. You might notice that your body wants to automatically respond and react to the things that start coming up. We start going into survival mode. Again, you're going to regulate your nervous system and you're going to bring yourself back to the 0 point. This is the embodiment of the absolute. Okay. You are not helpless. You are not hopeless. You are not the sadness. You are not the victim of anything. You are not alone. Okay. All the ideas and the illusions of loneliness and separation are temporary. It is not true. It is an untruth. You are not mistrust. All the mistrust that you feel towards yourself or others. Temporary illusion of survival. You are not death. Okay, most of these survival mechanisms are to avoid suffering or avoid death, the fear of death. Allow yourself to dissolve the fear of death as you begin to observe that you are not death, because you're not. You are an infinite fractal of infinite potential. You are not this body. You are not the physical. You are an etheric being of light force. You are not death. You are not death. You are not separation. You are not death. You are not fear. Okay, so begin to observe your body in this state of neutrality. And as you allow yourself to embody this neutral point, begin to notice how good it feels in the body. A regulated nervous system feels amazing in the body. It feels so calm. It feels actually pleasurable. Okay. So you are beginning to create serotonin. Okay, you're beginning to create serotonin. Now, if you are a person that has abused of your chemicals in your brain with dopamine and induced false, fake inductions of serotonin, it might take more time for you to repair the nervous system and feel this. But you will immediately begin to feel a state of calm, of peace, of harmony, as you allow yourself to embody the 0 point. Any thoughts that come into your mind, just let them drift away as you continue to observe yourself without judgment, without needing to apply any meaning to anything that is happening in this moment. You are simply the observer. You are connected to your body and what it feels to be an observer, but you're not getting hung up on any one emotion, any one sensation. Everything is passing through you as you are actively participating in the co-creation of this moment in a state of stillness and reconnection. Remember the breathing. Oftentimes when we are judging, we stop breathing. So I want you to notice every time you start judging, we stop breathing. Okay, we become paralyzed. When you're breathing, you are observing. You are exercising the ebb and flow of life and death through the breath. So this is a way of training the nervous system into the acceptance of the ebb and flow by allowing breath to come and go. Excellent. Okay. So now that you're here, I want you to go up now, and you can stay in this state as long as you want. You can turn this off and come back to it later and sit here for an hour. My invitation. But allow yourself to go up to your crown. And I want you to shine your crown light down on top of this room filled with karmic contracts. All of those experiences that you just brought yourself out of into a state of the 0 point, you're going to see them in agreements in that room. Just shine your crown, your 7th and 8th chakra on top of them and dissolve them completely. Go ahead and empty out that room. And go ahead and fill that room with your creative color, the color that is now in your crown. You might notice that your color has shifted, become lighter. Whatever it is, without judgment or applying meaning, simply place that color inside that room as you set the intention that everything in your life, all that you experience, is in alignment with your state of consciousness and co-creation, with your intentional awareness of co-creation. This requires you to be in the present moment, every moment. So as you begin to program your body at the cellular level, that you will be present with yourself every moment in a state of observation of your emotions, your thoughts, present fully in the body, without resisting, without running away. You're literally experiencing an alchemization and a rebirth at this moment. So allow yourself to activate the 9th, the 10th, the 11th. Go ahead and open your root back up into a balanced state, your sacral, your solar back into a balanced state. And you're going to continue activating the 11th, the 12th, the 13th chakra, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. You'll notice that the higher you activate, the more relaxed and deeper your stillness becomes in your body. 19th, 20th, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Okay, so go ahead and activate the 24 chakras in the body. I want you to see white light of source as you anchor that source down through your body into the physical, down through the perineum into the center of the earth. Go ahead and expand that white light around your body, widening your anchoring source. Okay, widen that anchor of your source cord through your body. You'll notice that the frequency shifts in the room and in your body. You are activating your DNA. You're coming to the 0 point. Do not lose this state of being. And as you open your eyes, I want you to continue to see, okay, with your eyes open, all 24 dimensional layers of your body. Allow yourself to see yourself connected down to the center of the earth, completely connected to your body. Okay, excellent. Go ahead and open your eyes and welcome back. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Don't lose the state of being and the state of observation. Illness cannot exist in this state of being. And from here emerges love. You'll notice that it's really easy to access gratitude from here. Okay, gratitude is very healing. It is the unifying force that unites us with this universe. So allow yourself to embody that gratitude. Allow yourself to embody that love, the true serotonin that is creating this masterful creation of chemistry in your body that changes your geometry. Okay? So I want to thank you for joining me again today. And I do have one question that I want to answer before I leave that is really relevant to today's conversation. And it's a question by Jason. Thank you so much for that super chat, Jason. Geraldine, you may have answered this before. Why would awakened persons have sex if they meet their own needs? What do they gain? That's an excellent question. And it's one that I experienced profoundly when I was going through my awakening, discovering that I no longer desired sex. And when you're in this state of union with the universe, you can alchemize your sexual energy. It automatically becomes alchemized because you redirect your attention from the parasitic, addictive part of you into a state of co-creation and harmonious balance. And that satiates all human desire. So what happens is that your purpose for coupling with another human changes. It's no longer about pleasure. It's no longer about creating the human version of love, which is actually quite parasitic in its exchange because there's always an element of codependency in regular human romantic relationships. And so the need to deconstruct the old paradigm of relationships is really necessary for us into understanding what it means to host higher frequency relationships. And those look like something completely different that we haven't really known of. And actually, our sexual energy is one of the most powerful energies that we have. And we need to learn how to cultivate that sexual energy in order to create unison. The ancient sages of our time utilized sex to reach higher states of frequency. When we alchemize sexual energy in the process of having sex with a partner, your 7th and 8th chakra can actually open up. And this can only happen when you clear out your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd chakra and cultivate the 0 point that allows you to access higher bands of frequency. And when sex occurs, the potential for a massive orgasmic state that is not limited to the physical body can occur. You create high levels of DMT, which allow incredibly spiritual experiences through this intercourse. And a person that talks about this is Mantak Chia. I've talked about him many times on my channel before. You can check him out. The transmutation process of sexual energy is something that I invite everyone to at least take a look at, so you understand how to utilize our most powerful life force. And of course, you know, if you are looking to procreate, okay, to create another soul on this earth, this alchemization sex, the sex in alchemization, it's a higher frequency way of co-creation, is actually one of the most compassionate ways to bring a soul into this earth that is not tied to the karmic cycles of reincarnation. They are tied, still entangled with the soul, but with a higher octave of agreements that are transmutational through the lifespan of the child's existence, which means that the child remembers their ancestral memory very early on. They remember who they are very early on. There's already some of these children being born, for those of you that are, you know, leading very spiritual, high vibrational experiences. You might not know that you're alchemizing your sexual energy, but you're doing it naturally. And that's what happened to me in my journey, that I didn't know that that's what I was already doing actually all my life. With sexual energy, until I began to learn about this and realize, you know, this is innate. And there are many bloodlines on this earth that are utilized for the hybridization program because of their knowledge of the utilization of sexual energy, because it creates the highest functioning DNA strand. Most Dan Winter talks about this as well as being highly sought after DNA, right? So you cultivate your DNA because it becomes highly geometric, highly alchemizable, and you become a centripetal spin that is a magnet of manifestation. So utilizing sexual energy for that higher co-creation is actually one of the most powerful ways of creating life that is not karmic. Most of our breeding, most of our procreation practices are deeply karmic, and that is why, you know, it's very difficult to raise a child, because we are compartmentalized, we are fractalized, we bring in another fractal, and there is never a time for the two, father and mother, to come into completion, because they just experience infinite states of fractalization after bringing the child. So, you know, it's really important to understand these mechanics of co-creation in order to understand the responsibility of utilizing these powerful energies that we have in this realm. So I want to thank you so much for that incredible question. And actually, the alchemization retreat that I'm doing with Neil Gower on Portal to Ascension will address a large part of this as well there. And I will also host other private groups on this topic, because it's a really deep topic that most of us really need to learn about. Okay. All right, my loves, thank you so much for your incredible super chat. Wow, Wired Weaver, thank you so much for that. Thank you for that incredible super chat. Jason, love you. How can we alchemize during sex? Right, so that's actually what we're going to talk about. There's an entire process to learning how to alchemize during sex, but most of the work is done in your own personal shadow work. Okay, the shadow work is absolutely essential. And I invite you to check out two things: my alchemization challenge, because I talk about that there, the whole process of alchemizing sexual energy through the body, and also the laws of the universe. They go hand in hand, because we are learning how to embody those laws of the universe in order to access these higher states. Okay. All right, love you so much. I hope you guys have an incredible week, and I will see you soon. Much love. Take care. Bye. Love you.